I'm so happy that our brother Yusef Abner is going to come, and he's going to talk about the Nguzo Saba as the foundation for health. He sent me a copy of this PowerPoint already, and the slides that he has in here are excellent, and so I'm looking forward to this discussion. I unfortunately don't know a lot about Brother Yusef. He just seems like a great brother, just the times that I met him. And so forgive me, Yusef, if you sent me your bio. I didn't get it if you sent it. But man, I'm just happy that you're here. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself as you begin?
Absolutely, and that's exactly where I wanted to start, Brother Minister. And so first, let me ask my elders if I have permission to speak.
I'm not
Yes.
that old.
Yes, you do.
Yes. Yes, he has permission.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask again because I want to give my introduction coming into the community, which is something I've been wanting to do for quite a while now. A little bit about myself. I'm born in Detroit, Michigan, raised back between Detroit and Ann Arbor, Michigan. My wife and I have been together since years now. We've been together since high school. We have 6 children. Yeah, it's
beautiful.
Been extremely fortunate. Met the love of my life at 17. And so we moved out here in 95. We had 2 children at that point, had 4 more since. And I'm going to go into my story a little bit when I get into the presentation, because it really kind of leads up to kind of why I wanted to focus on this health piece today. My field that I've been in is behavioral health and psychology. Been working in there for 21 years. Before that, I've worked with juveniles in Detroit, coming out of Detroit. I've worked with adults with developmental disabilities, but for the last 21 years, been working with individuals with significant and serious health issues, psychological health issues. So schizophrenia, major depression, in-lock programs for danger to self, danger to other, and those types of things. And it's been my experience there and some of my personal experiences that has really brought me back home. And I want to talk about that. So I'd like to share first about kind of how I got on this track, and then I'd like to share what I've learned from this incredible field of African-centered psychology. I want to focus on in just this one area into psychotherapy and what it's brought to my life, but also what I hope as I get into that side of the field, hope that I can bring to others. And so with that, that's a little bit about myself. And so since I'm new to the community, I'm going to ask again, do I have permission to share now yes. that you know a little bit about me?
Yes, brethren, yes.
Yes, you have permission.
Thank you, family. So overview of the presentation, I've asked that Mama Ani, she says our spirit symbolizes our uniqueness as a people, or we could say that the African-American ethos is spiritual. Like culture is understood to refer to a shared group reaction and group response. And she asks us, what happens when a people are forced to live in a culture based on the worldview that is oppressive to their ethos? And I'm going to ask you all that question. What's your feedback? What do you think when you hear that question? What happens to us?
We're under occupation. We're under we have, as Van Sertima said, incarceration of the imagination.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Exactly. We fall under the tyranny of oppression.
Absolutely.
Our
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Keisha.
Our spirit moves in various ways to protect us and continue us in the light of all of the daily attacks.
Absolutely. Thank you, sister. And that piece right there, the African spirit and how it's kept us going throughout this, that's what African-centered psychology is reaching back into. This is what I lost for many years. And I want to talk about that briefly and what that meant. This path that led me towards home, it happened in 3 ways. I said, me and my wife moved out to California in 95. Young father, my goal, now listen to this. I was trying to be the best father and husband I could. My intentions were right. During this process, though, of coming out, working, remaining faithful, playing with my children, teaching my children, my intentions were correct, but I wasn't listening to my spirit. And what happened was I was separated from my community. This is amazing thing that happens in this culture. In this culture, you can begin to have progress. You can begin to achieve things in this culture while at the same time becoming more and more unhealthy. Because when you play this game of success in this culture, it actually rewards unhealthy behaviors. It rewards individualism. It actually takes it and says to you, the more you can pull into just yourself, the more you can get from this. And so as I was moving forward, and remember, my mind was trying to do the right, thought I was doing the right thing. But during this process, I put on 360 pounds. I was 360 pounds.
Wow. Wow.
All of those medical numbers and all of those things were poor. I remember standing up in the morning at the top of my stairs and just having to pause every morning before I go down, just hoping my knees were going to carry me down the steps. Right? And this is back in my 30s, just waiting now for a knee replacement. Doctor, so the first thing that happened to me was went and saw a doctor, and the doctor had told me, all right, it's time for you to get on these medications. And I said, I'm not getting on those medications. He's like, you don't really have much of a choice. I said, well, I have some type of choice, and I got to figure it out, though. But right now, I'm not getting on those medications. The second, and so that was key to me, because I was starting to think now. Second part, this gentleman at one of the places I worked, young brother, strong brother, hearing voices, having a rough time. But this brother, we made a connection. Now, this connection that we had now, what I did have was a very strong sense of being Black. And this is what my mother gave me. And the best of being Black, that core of Black is beautiful, Black power. What I hadn't finished is my transition to becoming African. And I hadn't started my transition fully. But I made a connection with this young brother. Now, here's what happened. And this hit me in my chest. This is supposed to be a place where we help people get healthy, where we support people. We have these things called staff calls, where they call all the staff and we come running because something's happening in that moment. And I ran up there, and this young brother was laying on his back on the floor with 3 people on top of him. And they're yelling, help. My training says I'm supposed to get down there and support, so I hold one of his legs. This young, big, strong brother now starts crying as he's laying there. And he looks up at me and he says to me, this is what got me. He said, Yusef, you know this is wrong. Yusef, you know this is wrong. I'll tell you what happened, because I didn't see the original piece. But there was a young white girl who came up behind him while he was standing talking to one of the nurses, started pounding on his back, hitting him out of nowhere. He turns around and holds her, so she stops hitting him. The flood of staff rush in, see this brother holding this white girl, hearing this call, they grab him and they take him to the floor. This is the system that I was working in. And it pains me to this day to know that I was a part of that moment where I was holding a brother down when all he was doing was trying to defend himself. I'm trying to figure out now, what do I do? My daughter comes to me with a question, and she changes everything for me. My daughter comes to me with a question that year and says, Dad, why don't we celebrate Kwanzaa? She heard about it in school. Why don't we celebrate Kwanzaa? Now, there were some quick answers I could give to that, but for the next day or so, I really thought about that. Like, wait, why am I not celebrating Kwanzaa? What is really going on with me that I'm not celebrating Kwanzaa? And this led to the beginning of a life change and the beginning of a health change that changed everything for us. Not only for me, but my family and for the people I work with. So I have a question now for you all. Why can't Western psychology lead us to optimal health?
They're not healthy themselves. Sigmund Freud was nuts.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at his story, Skinner, you know, put his kids in the box, you know, to train, you know, the Skinner box.
Yeah,
and stuff.
Skinner, yeah.
So they're not healthy themselves. So how could they help us?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Not only are they not healthy themselves, they have no conception of health. Western psychology and Western medicine has no conception of what it means to be healthy. It's an amazing type of process where instead of on one end you have optimal health, and on the other end you have dying and death on the side. The best they ever achieve is unhealthiness with disorder and dying on the other side. Even when, as they've done in the last 20 years, 20, 30 years, at an increasing rate, dig back into the ancient healing practices and try to co-opt those into these current psychological programs that they have. Not only do they take them, they steal them and claim them as their own, but they actually rob these practices of their true healing power. I was trained in this practice called dialectical behavior therapy. They have this list of principles that are supposed to be holistic, that are supposed to meet the human where they're at. I went through here and I pointed out to them that not only do each of their principles have a foundation that goes back thousands of years before they came up with them, but that these same principles, the way in which they're interpreting them and translating them into this European viewpoint actually robs them of the actual power to heal. I'm sure we've all seen different versions of this. the difference between the Eurocentric worldview and the African worldview. And this is from Dr. Cambone, who's now one of our ancestors. This difference between what the Eurocentric worldview has and what the African worldview is goes to the source of what it means to be truly healthy. Some of those things, the dichotomy between human and the human nature is a dichotomy between body and mind, between self and others, whereas the human nature in the African worldview is oneness and unity. But throughout this, here is the thing though. When trying to understand these worldviews, for some of us, and maybe not members of WOSE, but for some of us, it's not just the African worldview side that we must learn and understand. It is how we've been infected with the Eurocentric worldview and where that shows up in our daily lives, in our thinking, and it actually can cloud our interpretation of the African worldview. When I first saw this one, and this was the first one I saw from Dr. Cambone years ago, I was like, absolutely, these things speak to me in the African worldview. And then I shifted my mindset over to the other side, and I said, unfortunately, I see how some of those things play out in my daily life as well. And in the attempts to reach maximum wellness and maximum health, it's not merely to ascribe to the African worldview, but is to divest yourself of every remnant of the Eurocentric worldview wherever you can find it. And a lot of these things you have to search for them and rip them out. I'll talk about one. I would consider myself and I would have always considered myself not materialist. But you look at things from a behavioral standpoint, not just how you see it or what you want to say or think about yourself. You look at what you do. And ultimately, health is going to be about what we know, what we are, but also what we do. Healing and wellness. I'm going to ask the family, what are some of our traditional forms of healing and wellness?
I think fasting.
Fasting.
Fasting. Yeah.
Proper
Fasting.
diet.
Laying on of hands as well.
Laying on of hands, absolutely.
Proper diet.
Proper diet.
Meditating.
Meditating. What is fascinating about everything that we've mentioned here is that in my 21 years of working in behavioral health, knowing that these are the things that heal us, that keep us well, that feed our spirit, none of these things are part of what's actually being done within that system. We joined the WOSE in-person session several weeks ago, and there was the mindful opening. A sister walked us through our chakras. In all the time in the organization I work with, and they do a lot of meditation, they do all of that. Never, by the middle of this process with this sister, I felt things that I haven't felt in years. And it was speaking to, I turned to my wife and I just shook my head like, we are years behind joining WOSE.
May I add utterance?
Tolerance?
Utterance.
Yes, go ahead.
So you asked what are some of our traditional healing practices, and one of the most profound is utterance.
Utterance. Can you talk a little bit about that, sister?
Yes, to call into being what you want to be, to speak it into existence. And so to claim healing, to utter it, to say it, that's a big part of, for me coming up and hearing the elders say, you can speak what you want into existence, or don't claim something that you don't want to speak into existence.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, the core, and you'll see towards the end of this presentation, the core is that, the utterance. It's calling into existence our health. I so much appreciate that, sister. This is our spirit. This is our ancestors that are doing that calling. And this is, again, the peace that is so much missing, and it's been missing in my life. What's been fortunate is when my daughter came to me and said, why don't we do Kwanzaa? And from that year we did, and we haven't stopped since, but it didn't stop and doesn't stop from the 26th to the 1st. We created a life built around these principles. Mm-hmm. When you talk about calling into existence in 2014, where we were at as a family and we were struggling in different ways, in 2014, we said, we are all going back to school. My sisters, my children are going to go to college. My wife is going to college. My mother, my father, we are all, and as a family, we called it into existence. And this moment, the only ones that are not in college are the ones that have graduated. And that would not have happened for us if it wasn't for these principles and becoming alive in our life, and for us calling it into existence. The two areas that have helped me dramatically and that I hope to practice. I'm currently in school. I'm talking about this Western psychology. I just had a 4-hour exam this morning on Western psychology. So I'm kind of done with it for right now, but I hope to practice into psychotherapy and optimal psychology. As a matter of fact, Dr. Linda James Myers, she's in a book club reading that's happening every fourth Thursday, and she's leading that on optimal health. So I can put that chat if anybody wants to join. They've only had one meeting. They've reached out and said anyone else who wants to join and learn directly from Dr. Myers is welcome. I'm ecstatic about it because she's made a profound impact in my life and my family's life. So, but this meeting, I will talk mostly about into psychotherapy because I want to focus on how the Nguzo Saba really can, and their process of incorporating that in your life can change your life. A few things on African-centered psychology. And knows that I was trying to get somebody else to do this presentation. So I hope everybody's got a little grace with me because I'm nervous.
Can I stop you right now? Can I stop you, Brother Yusef?
Yes, sir.
I just want to say, man, you are really going good. No need to be nervous. You are saying things that we need to hear. And I'm glad that somehow through the powers of the Most High that you're giving this presentation. So walk forward in boldness and give us the truth.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
Yes,
Thank you.
go for it.
All right. African-centered psychology. I stayed away from psychology in my 21 years. My background was actually before that Western philosophy, and I got into African philosophy from that. But psychology, Western psychology, had started for me a mess. It's been an illness, and now let me just be clear. Let me be clear. I'm not saying that there is not certain things that people can't benefit from. Talking to someone, if that's what is helpful to you, and if that person can relate to you in a way that is helpful to you and supportive. But African-centered psychology is different, and it's reaching something much different. It's not trying to reach your personality. It's trying to assess your personhood. It's trying to understand, where are you at in terms of your development as an African? Where are you at in terms of your experience and manifestation of what you actually are at your core? What we would call in this world your DNA, but what we know to be that actual life force, that spirit that's inside of you. Where are you at in manifesting that? Where are you at in suppressing that? Where are you at in ignoring that? And African-centered psychology says we're coming straight to that. Its spirit and the core is what permeates everything that is. It points out the notion that everything in the universe is interconnected. And that is a statement that a lot of people throw around. That places your significance and your responsibility to everything that's in existence. To follow the principles of Ma'at, because you're being impacted and affected by the evil out there, and you can take that and turn around and continue that evil. But everything you do, understand that it has a repercussion. The value that's given in African-centered psychology is the collective. This is what I was missing for so many years. I was missing my community. I was missing my spirit. I was missing guidance. I was missing correction. I was missing love from a family that can hold me beyond my immediate connections, my immediate biological connections. But my spirit actually needs that connection with all of existence. African psychology recognize that. Whereas the field I've worked at, we talk about this individual and what this individual needs to do as an individual, and maybe how they relate to those in the community. In African-centered psychology, it says we start with your relationship to the community. We start with your understanding, your knowledge, and your connection to the community. And we say that part of your illness, part of where your disorder is, or part of your frustration, your anxiety, it's because your connection to the community is splintered. And for a lot of us, it was broken. And for all of us, we know none of that was by happenstance. All of it was designed. And we're living under it to this day. And if we're going to attempt to get health, African-centered psychology says it starts with us linking back with our community. It says the concern of African-centered psychology, our third bullet point at the top, is to understand the systems of meaning of human beingness and human functioning and the restoration of the normal natural order to human development. And this was one of the things that took me a while to really grasp the depth of this. But this is to the core, that we Africans are the first humans. And what we learn, what we gave the world, and what we learned to survive that spawned the rest of the world. It's the essential human qualities. What we've talked about earlier, the suggestions, laying hands on, our nutrition, our utterances. These are the practices that we had at the beginning. To understand that those are not just African cultural traditions, but those are the practices that started humanity growing. As such, and this is Dr. Myers said that last bullet point, African-centered psychology is used to resolve personal and social problems to promote optimal functioning. And that optimal functioning just is understanding and getting back to the core parts of what it means to be human. So when we talk about our nutrition, it's not us trying to decide, well, what do we put in? What type of diet works, this or that? Our body already knows what it needs. Our ancestors had already ate those diets for thousands and thousands of years. It's not about us figuring out today what we need to do. It's about us going back and looking at what got us here in the first place and what actually helped us to get through the horrors of the Ma'afa. Optimal health by Dr. Myers. She defines it as the best possible emotional and intellectual, physical, spiritual, and social economic aliveness that we can attain. When you're talking about building your health, you can't do what this system does and break it into separate things. There's no such thing as physical health without spiritual health. There's no such thing as spiritual health without social health and cultural health. There's no such thing as that. And so when you start talking about building your health, you're talking about creating a plan and creating rituals and processes that are going to integrate these into sets of practices for you and your community. I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit because I want to get to into psychotherapy. It's a root. Is anyone familiar with into psychotherapy?
You know what? When I saw the slide, I felt ashamed that I wasn't aware of it. It seems so basic to African people, but I'm glad you're including that in your presentation.
Thank you for sharing that, Brother Minister. But don't feel ashamed because you know they didn't hear of it is because they suppress it. We have brothers already. I'm going to be going in it, try to reach out to this brother last week in LA who's practicing this. And I'm like, it's been right here in LA all these years, and I'd never heard one word of it. Right? They suppress it. We need to bring it out. This community needs to bring it out because the things we talk about, the things I've heard in Wose, the things I've looked in Black Knowledge Matters, and I've went back and looked at the videos, these are people trained now that when we're at our toughest moments, that these are people trained now to have a structure around how to work with us and help us to get more in balance and help us to get in line with our spirit and with the universe. And so when we look at this form of therapy, it's amazing. I won't go into the European forms of psychology and how they present themselves. We can do that at a different time, but I'll tell you that none of them are going to start by saying our title, what we call ourselves, represents the cosmic universal force that is manifested in all life and things, the natural healing force the force that is oriented towards harmony, balance, and health. It starts with our spirit. And it starts with the spiritual. It emphasizes a spiritual intuitive process over the rational scientific. And so it's doing a direct challenge. And this is the beauty of African-centered psychology, because ever since Dr. Nobles and Akbar and all of them in 68 broke away from the association of American Association of Psychologists, when they broke away, they started creating something powerful for us. It is based on the core principles of the ancient African and Afrocentric worldview, nurtured through African-American culture. This is for us. This is psychology, this is therapy that is made for us. The principles of Ngzo psychotherapy: harmony, balance, interconnectedness, cultural awareness, effective epistemology, and authenticity. I'm going to talk about each of these, but in current neuropsychology, as I'm being learned so much about in the field I worked in, it's about symptom management. It's about getting you those medications or getting you a couple interventions so that you can get settled and go back to doing whatever you were doing before, while you remain unhealthy, while you remain just able to get through life or just deal with those relationships and manage through. This form of therapy made for us says, no, we're going to help you get into harmony. We're going to help you get into balance, get connected again with life and with others. It's going to increase your cultural awareness. And well, let me just walk through it. And here's where I love it, because this is what brought me to it. The goals: harmonious and authentic functioning, but also to live within the Nguzo Saba, to manifest it daily. And I'll show you how I did that in my life, and how I do that in my life since 2014. But the model that they have is what I want to share with us all. This model that talks about harmony, awareness, alignment, actualization, and synthesis. Our community, you can get this through psychotherapy and the structure of Ngzo psychotherapy. And I recommend that if that's something that someone needs, that they explore it, that they go look for it and make their own decision. The same with optimal psychology with Dr. Myers. But this model, what they've done is, and this disclaimer I got, I'm not talking about us taking the model of the therapy and applying it to our lives. I'm saying the model of the therapy is based upon everything that Wose is already doing and been talking about for many years. It's based upon the African principles. It's based upon our history. It's based upon what we know about ourselves. And what I'm suggesting is the structure that Ngzo psychotherapy has, borrowing that back and saying, how does this play out in our daily life? How can these ideas in this process of harmony, awareness, alignment, actualization, and synthesis play out in our daily life? If you were to go to Ngzo psychotherapy, this is the stages. You start and they try to create harmony with you. They bring awareness to you. They help you get in alignment. They help you actualize your goals, and then they create a synthesis. But this is a basic model for us in our relationships every day with ourselves and with others. And I want to explain that harmony. The objective in the harmony phase is the establishment of relationship. Now ask, and some of us already do this, I can do much better at it. The objective is the establishment of relationship. Think about as you approach others. Now your first goal is establishment of a harmonious relationship. and consistently, regardless of what comes up in that relationship, from African to African, your goal is the establishment, the maintenance and sustaining of a harmonious relationship. And you call that out, as the sister said earlier, you call that into existence. And I'm not talking about just those people that we hit it off with. I'm talking about all of us who we come in contact with, that at the source again of my spirit, my goal is to create a harmonious relationship with you, even if you have the exact opposite intentions. Bringing awareness. And awareness occurs when we clarify the key issues at the present moment, as we talk to each other, as I deal with myself. I'm not letting things so overwhelm me or letting the world type of control my mind, where I'm not taking the moment to get clear on what's happening this moment and what the wisdom that this moment is giving me, so that intuitively I can move from spirit and not move from habit or routine or move from emotion, but to move from spirit. Alignment. It's the heart of the process into psychotherapy, but effective alignment is achieved through the acknowledgement and collective experience of intense feelings and intuitions. And this is us coming together, again, internally with myself, but also with each of you and you with others, to acknowledge the collective experience that we're having at any given moment. To not let the Western conception that this is me dealing with you, but that this is us together. And actualizing the phase, it's actually putting into practice everything that we're attempting to do. Putting things into practice as we utter them and call them into existence is key. I mentioned my wife and I have been together 36 years. That has not been, again, by just chance. Fortunately, my mother told me some things. She told me love is a set of things you do. It's not how you feel. It's not what you say. It's what you do. And love is as love does. And so when you find that person for you, you get very clear with them on what is loving and what is not loving. And that's what you do, and you hold yourself accountable to it. And you make sure you hold that other person accountable to the behaviors that demonstrate love, and you call out the behaviors that are not loving.
Brother Yusef, can I
Yes.
interject here?
Yes.
And someone just put in the chat, love is action, and she's saying to speak. But I just wanted to say that the glyph along the Nile for love is a farming implement, which says to me, you have to work at it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And deeply in this culture, and us growing under this culture, but always you have to work at it.
Yes. Yes.
Because love is not personal. Love is a recognition of the divine in me and in you, and that same divine force is in both of us, and it's recognition of that. And as I constantly try to act in alignment with that, it is constant work. And as you get to know someone, and this is why the beauty of these phases, it gives you structure for making sure you're staying in alignment, making sure that I'm trying to be in harmony with my wife, with my children, with my community. And when I go to actualize it, I better do it. I better actually do it. When you say, all right, Yusef, all right, so you talking all this stuff, let me come watch you. Let me just stand in the corner and watch you do what you do, because that will be the sign of whether or not I'm truly bringing any of this into the world and whether or not I mean it. And sometimes I'm doing very well, and sometimes I'm challenged, right? Because I am human. But African-centered psychology gives us models and structure for the healing and the building of our selfhood and our communities again. And the synthesis piece, no, we got 10 minutes, about 5 minutes, I say.
No, we have till 6:30.
Oh, beautiful.
We have till 6:30. Yeah, it's 5 to 6:30. So you know, you're just getting warmed up. You're just getting, you know, so go on. There's some things I'm sure that people want to ask and comment. Like right now, I'm putting the glyph that I was talking about in the chat, but please continue, Brother Yusef. Don't stop.
Well, I'll just end this part and I'll open it up for questions, and then I'll continue after that. The synthesis piece. When we have went through this process, we begin to look at how do we evaluate now the effectiveness of what we just went through, right? When you talk about work, Brother Imhotep, my wife and I have worked. We've worked. Large part of the reason we've been together 36 years is working together, working on ourselves, working in the context of this relationship, the challenges of everything coming outside of it and things coming inside of it, right? But taking that moment to say, all right, we just went through something. It could be something that was just wonderful, and it could have been a moment where we were struggling. And we're out now. What did we just learn? What did we learn about each other? What did we learn about ourselves? And what does this mean for us moving forward? Right? That synthesis piece. Now, you say it explicitly, and you begin to do things explicitly, and you live your Africanness explicitly. You should be able to see it in everything you do. This is what I'll call in a second, but I want to pause here and ask the community, any questions, comments, feedback, anything at this point?
Go ahead.
Well, I'll chime in. I was struck by the number of principles of the Wose community that was popping up in your presentation, and I found that to be very validating in the work that we've been doing for a number of years, and so I continue to be encouraged by that. I think the approach that you're taking is one that we desperately need. We have a lot of mental illness in the broader society, and more we're seeing Black people struggling under the weight of mental illness as well. And so we definitely need approach to psychoanalyzing and treating Black people that will give them the best chance, the best opportunity to regain themselves and to recover, because we need everybody, you know?
Yes.
So, yeah, I really appreciate the work that you're doing. I encourage you to continue to do it. And, you know, would like to think of you as part of the Wose community. And so just keep on doing the fine work that you're doing. I understand you're still are taking classes and you're still studying. And so that does pose a question. Do you find any level of conflict between the Western studies that you are receiving and oftentimes perhaps other studies that you've been exposed to that don't exactly line up with what's being taught? Do you have any conflict with that? How do you deal with it?
Yes, sir. I chose not to go back to school for many years because I refused to go into a psychology program. And that's the field I was working in. and I refused. Um, the place I'm at, Saybrook University, when I started at Saybrook, the reason I started at Saybrook is the dean of the clinical psychology department at that point was the president of the Association of Black Psychologists, Dr. Theopia Jackson. And Dr. Jackson, what she's doing at that program is challenging all of these views. She's challenging all of it. That's when I said, finally, there's something I can go into and feel comfortable with. I refused to go back for many years. And I mentioned, like, my wife and I and our kids, everybody said, we're going back to school. And it took me another 5 years to find a school. Yeah. I'm serious, to find one. But until I found one grounded in African-centered psychology and the programs that she's allowed me to do, the writing I was allowed to do and still am allowed to do, that's why, because everything else is a conflict with my spirit.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
We have a question from Minister Amadi. Minister Amadi, go ahead. Thank you, Katabasi.
Thank you. This is a really powerful presentation talking about raising awareness. Absolutely. In fact, I see, I have a professional relationship that I'm dealing with, and I'm just inspired by how you shared in terms of my whole approach to creating this kind of reconciliation that I'm trying to do. When you said, focus on the relationship, and then the issue at hand, something like that you said, like that's the thing, like to focus on, it's about the relationship and finding harmony and, in this relationship, the God in me sees the God in you, so to speak. So I just think it's really just, I know it's powerful because, like you said, this is what we study. This is who we are, right? In the African-centered community, this is who we are. So you're giving us an approach that is in alignment with who we are and what we do and what comes natural. So I just have to say that. And then I want to say, so then how could those of us who want to explore this whole, what I call model, how can we, what would we do? Like, is there websites or, how can we, get more information about this? I mean, I think this is a really powerful tool that you're sharing with us this evening.
Well, yes, sir. Thank you for that. And I'm going to be starting my internship at a organization called Pranamine in Oakland, which is built by African-centered psychologists. Mm-hmm. My goal is to get them a part of the Wholesale community, to share, to come and teach, to volunteer time. My goal, I'll say this, I'm in this field because of a commitment I made to my family. This is why I'm back in school. I have no desire necessarily to practice in that way. My entire goal here is to give my time to my community. And so wherever also in sessions where we sit down and talk and teach around some of these models and bringing in people to do that, I would love to sit down with one or a group or anybody and go over this, but also to begin to reach out across the country and say, can we use you to come in and talk? Can we get you to do a Zoom? Can we get you to come and actually maybe meet with the youth and talk to them? And I'm talking about the people who I'm learning from, the masters out there, but also, so hopefully that begins to answer the question. I want to reach out and bring those people into WOSE. Dr. Jackson, who I'm working with, says he's familiar with WOSE in Oakland. Well, I said, all right, then it's time to come back. He's doing some phenomenal work and neurological work based in this African-centered piece that is cutting edge, even for Western psychology. And then let's get the community involved. And so,
I'm sorry, go on, finish.
no, go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, so are you saying then that this is an emerging model that is emerging even as we speak? Is that what you're saying?
I'll put it this way: the model has been around for years and suppressed by Western psychology. But I mentioned that earlier, like Western psychology now, what they found, this is what's interesting, because you wonder, like, how all of a sudden they're talking all this mindfulness stuff, and they're talking about all these, they're allowing you to go get meditation, and like how all of a sudden these things are part of the system, which are ancient healing practices. How are now they're part of all these systems, all these cognitive behavior systems are taking our stuff, taking stuff from all over the world and claiming it. But here's the thing. What happened was, through a series of tests, and largely a lot based upon the African-centered psychology, sociology, some African-centered doctors, they showed the effectiveness of these things. And when the insurance company started seeing, oh, what do you mean? Meditating regularly, getting in touch with your spirituality, what do you mean that is healing? Insurance companies said, oh, let's see the studies. And once they did, they're like, oh, we'll pay for that. But that's our stuff.
Wow.
So now, absolutely. Today, it's not that into psychotherapy is new. It's not that optimal psychology is new. As a matter of fact, Dr. Joyce Meyer, she was writing this in the 80s. This is when she was writing this in the 80s. And then you got a place, like I told you at the beginning of this, talked about at the beginning of this, dialectical behavior therapy, and you have positive psychology, these big things that came out of Western psychology in the late 90s. You're like, that's all Dr. Joyce Meyer stuff. She already wrote all of that stuff. But since it was centered in our African values, they dismissed it. It's here. It's been here. And it's up to us and people like me to spread it to us. If they're not going to want it, if they're not going to need it, or if they're just going to corrupt it and take what they want so that they can get, meet what the insurance companies want, let them take it. But it's on us to bring it to the community because it was made for us. That's what's beautiful. Dr. Nobles, when you read Seeking the Saku and the series of articles in there, in our progression of like this field in that book, and you read Dr. Akbar and the Akbar papers, and then again, optimal psychology work by Dr. Joyce Meyer. It's been here for a long time. It's our important moment to take use of it. And
thank you so much.
Say this, into psychotherapy, when I looked down in Los Angeles, looks like he's getting insurance companies to pay for it. So I'm like, all right, so there is some now the pieces there where it's being recognized more and more. But I want to say this very clearly, and maybe some of my people in my field, even our brothers and sisters may not want to hear this. My goal is not to sell anything to anybody. My goal is not to enter into relationships of psychotherapist to client with anybody in my community. I may do that down the road or something like that, but that's not my goal. My goal is to enter my community right now and offer whatever I have. That's where I'm at right now. So if I'm learning it, I'm sharing it.
So can we have your email?
Oh, absolutely. You got my email. Hey, y'all can come over. Y'all can come over and visit. I would love it.
Okay, we'll put it in the chat for us, please. Thank you.
I definitely.
We have a question.
Where are you?
We have a question from Sister.
I'm through now. Thank you, Imhotep.
Yeah. Thank you. We have a question from Sister Thondiway. Go ahead.
Hello there. How are you?
I'm doing well, sister.
Welcome. Thank you so much. Where are you located?
I'm in Sacramento, Fair Oaks, the village of Fair Oaks.
Oh, okay. You're not that far.
Yeah.
Well, I am a psychology major, and I've always had a problem with it, but I've always felt like I had to be in it to to try to change it or to get to my people in the way that they need the most. So I'm just elated, excited to hear about this. It's new to me. I'm just really excited, and I would like to know more because I did not further my education because I was just really frustrated with what they were pushing, medications and how they treat us when we do seek help. So there was a level of frustration there at all points of my education. I was getting ready to ask you about how the insurance companies are receiving this, but you partially answered that a few minutes ago. I just want to stay in touch. I know that you're going to put your email in that, and this looks like something that I could continue my education with. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you, sister. And absolutely, we would definitely stay in touch.
All right, we have another question from a brother, Kidi Awadu. Go ahead, Kidi.
Greetings, Brother Yusef, and to the Wholeness family. It is a joy, absolutely a pleasure to hear you speak today.
Yes.
You make so much sense. But I'm the one that has to ask some really tough questions. Marcus Garvey said to us back, 70 or more years ago, if the Negro is not careful, they will drink in all of the poison of modern society and die from the effects of it. I have been documenting that since 1975 through 2020, African Americans made almost every significant existential mistake that could be made, perhaps the worst of which was abortion, which removed a cumulative total of 42 million, which would be our youngest population from our people. Our demographics have fallen far below replacement. So my question, to make it brief without a speech, do we have enough time? Do we have enough communications mechanisms under our control to be able to reverse this grand degenerative trend?
Brother, you're asking me to answer that?
Yes. I'm demanding that you answer the question, brother, because you sound very intellectually, psychologically qualified to take on a tough question, because this is an existential question that I'm asking.
Right. This will be my answer. I don't know if we can turn the tide. I know we have no option but to use every method at our disposal to attack it. And this is one, the building of the community at all different levels, taking responsibility to step into the community and do what you can. And again, I would say without the goal of profiting off the community as you do it, but the goal of giving and turning that tide. This is something that I'm not where I need to be, brother. And I don't want anyone to get me wrong. Why I'm here today is because I'm taking another step towards that. I'm trying to grow into my Africanness. I'm trying to manifest better what it is that I want to be, that I know is deep inside of me. And I'm reaching out to everyone here to help with that process, while at the same time saying that I'm here. I'm actually walking in front of you and saying, I'm here and I'm ready, and put me to the test. We'll see how I do. This is my first time. We'll see how I do. But that's that question that you're asking. That's the one that we all need to ask. And I'll say this. If we don't do anything, if we don't step up right now, it's all over. It's all over. Right? And I'm being honest, like, it's not
just a quick follow-up. Does there come a point when our primary intention is to, in using the biblical metaphor, to prepare to sail the ark, to rescue as many as we can rescue?
That's to me, that's an interesting question. I don't know what that means in relationship to our community. I don't know how I would identify at this point who we are to save. I don't see leaving anyone at this point. See, I work with juveniles for many years, and I work with individuals like I was talking about earlier with schizophrenia, homicidal actions. And as I work with them, I said, every one of them was worth saving. Every one of them was worth trying to reach. I don't know how to answer that, how we would look at sailing on that ark yet. I'm 53 years old, and I don't know if it's up. I don't know if I'm at that point in my life anymore where I would be the one to get on that ark. I may be one of the ones at this point, as I move towards this latter years, that it's time for me to go down fighting.
And 53 is really quite young.
That's what I'm hearing.
Especially when you're 65. That's
or 80 years old.
Well, what I know is my responsibility, as always, is not to myself. My responsibility is to those who are coming after me. That is my number one responsibility, and I don't know how to choose that. I have to go after all of them right now.
So let me, Keedy, that was a very tough question. I'm glad you didn't ask me that. That's very penetrating and very good. And I like the way that you answered that, Brother Yusef. We have a Brother Minister Bill has his hand up. Go ahead. You had your hand up.
Yes.
Now it's not up. So
I was only going to say that we really shouldn't be thinking of singular events like an arc or some one thing, but maybe publishing a manual for how to build an arc or a way to get there. Something that isn't a single thing, but is available to many.
Good point.
In the present moment, it's all about spirit and intuition. And in the present moment, and when you stay in the present moment, you're going to be looking for all of your opportunities. It's not either this or that. It is looking for what are our opportunities in this moment and then capitalizing on those opportunities. There may be something that's happening right now out there that can turn the tide that's happening right now. And because I'm not looking for it, I don't see it. And so getting present and then paying attention to my community and everything else, and capitalizing.
But we do not have the option to do nothing. Right. As you said, we do not have the option to do nothing. Thank you. Beautiful presentation.
Yeah. And I think the the writings of Ayikwe Ama also gives us a great deal of context and encouragement in his very eloquent rendering of 2000 Seasons. And he reminds us that we should think of ourselves as the preparers of the way, that the work of clawing our way out would take another 1,000 seasons. So those of us that are catching the view, that are catching this notion of what he talked about was the way, of what we call ma'at, those that had caught the glimpse of that would have to settle for the fact that we would be preparers of the way to return ourselves back to previous heights. But it's going to be a journey.
A very good point, Brother Katabasi. Minister Bill has his hand up. Go ahead, Bill.
Yes, the Into Psychotherapy you mentioned is very much focused on doing things, and those who participate then benefit from the experience of doing that more than focusing on this sort of mythical fixed personality, right?
Right. Well, it goes to the core of the African spirit. And the process it tries to get you to is to begin to that spirit in your life and manifest the community in your life. And so it's, as opposed to just, again, in Western psychology where you're managing symptoms, like if I can get some medications and I can get some deep breathing and all of that, and that calms everything down, then I can go back to work and I can move on with life. But my spirit is still, I'm still in pain, right? But I'm just enough to get me back to work. Into Psychotherapy says, no, we're going to go towards healing. We're going to go towards health. Optimal psychology with Dr. Myers says we're going to go towards health, not just the management of illness. Right? And I'll add something too, because this is important, that we acknowledge that for as bleak as it looks at times right now, two things. One, there's some beautiful members of the youth out there right now doing some incredible. Two, we Africans have been through some stuff. And we've been very, very low, and we fought and dug out of that. Nothing that we have today was given. Nothing. And don't believe a word of what they say about the coming together and they're allowing us to do this, or out of their love. We fought for everything, and we fought out of the worst conditions. We didn't just fight out of slavery conditions. When they talk about slavery throughout human existence and all of that, we fought through the worst form of slavery that has ever existed on this planet. And we're still here. And it's as bleak as it seems right now, we fought through much worse. And we've made it through much worse.
That's right. That's right. Go ahead. Thank you, Minister Bill. Minister Makalisi has his hand up. Go ahead, Minister Makalisi.
Thank you. See, my brother, as you were speaking, I was thinking that what I heard you saying sounded much like a relationship with a book that I've had for many years, and if only recently sat down with it and started giving it a real serious read, and got really impressed with, oh my goodness, what the brother was presenting here. The brother I'm talking about is Nana Kwaku Berko, as we know, with Wade Nobles, and then when you mentioned the book, it's like Seeking the Saku. I said, wow, yes. and one of the things that Dr. Nobles the major thing that Dr. Nobles presents there is that yeah, we got to get away from European Eurocentric psychologists, and the whole bunch of stuff that the European people have imposed upon us. And one of the things that in his presentation, and I got to go back and read it some more, it was just about the term Black, and in this Eurocentric world, you know, Black is associated with all the negative stuff, and he said, no. Throughout the African continent in ancient times, and perhaps even today, you know, Black is something beautiful, and it's related. In one way, it's related to the birth of a child. It's like the rising of a sun, and a term from, I forget which language he spoke of, the term of Wayne BB. BB is the word for Black, but Wayne has to do with the sun, and so Wayne BB is referring to the sun at its most effective point of the day, when it's its brightest, doing its greatest work during the day. And so that was, you know, to me, is an example that I'm wrestling with to get to even fuller understanding. Again, we are Black people, and being Black, it has nothing to do with evil or negativity. That's something Europeans sought to impose upon us, and unfortunately, it's been successful in too many cases. But we have to change it. And then one more thing I'm going to comment about is you talked about love. Love is recognition of the divine within each of us, and I've grown to relate that to the principle of umoja, you know, the unity that we maintain, the family, community, nation, race. Well, it's the foundation of that. Yes, is that we know, we recognize and honor the divine within ourselves, and that it's in all of us. And we need all of us grow to have an understanding about what that means, what it empowers us to do, and then be about doing it to the best that we can do. So I'm gonna stop there and just say I appreciate your presentation, and I don't know. I was thinking we're going to be going through each of the principles of the Nguzo Saba. I don't know if that was what you were intending to do, if the time is going to allow that to happen. But I appreciate what you have shared with us to this point. Thank you.
And thank you. And Minister Mokalis, I would just say I'm honored for that. Your message on Sunday was powerful to me. Thank you.
Thanks and praises.
Right.
I do know now that there's time. If I could just show what this is, and I'll leave the presentation.
Let me just say, so it's 6:22. I don't think WOW is meeting after us. We can go over a little bit.
WOW is meeting today.
Okay, well, we have a hard cut at 7. Thank you for letting me know that, Darnisha. Thank you. Go ahead, Yusef. We have about 7 minutes.
All right. I just want to end with this. I won't walk through the whole thing, but just show you how I've used it in my life. I told you I was 60 pounds, bad knees, everything wasn't working well. Been able to change that every year from Kwanzaa. And I know that I took this offline, so I know that Imani doesn't say faith. I know that, but I didn't realize that till later. But using the Nguzo Saba throughout my life, every year at Kwanzaa, our family gets together and we make our goals for the next year. And in our goals, the key here, it's all about health. It's all about love of self. It's us. Self is us. In our plan, I leave with this statement: does the loving light of Amun-Ra live in you? And this part, does it shine through your deeds and actions? We make our goals, and in those goals, we try to integrate our Africanness into what we do. And I just want to show you one thing, the way it kind of looks. Break it up. I won't go into all of this, but I set my goals. So my psychological, mental, intellectual goals, the SAKU, I set my goals for the year. I set a vision of who I want to be and what I want to be. But when I do these goals, so like I set a reading list for 2023. I set my reading list. But get this now, when I'm doing that reading, it's a manifestation of Umoja. And when I say I can point out my Africanness in everything I do daily, I set this with the intention that it's representing this attempt in my life to live my Africanness. So everything on this list, when I play my guitar, as I'm working for my dissertation, I'm able to say what shows up. Kujijagulia, where does my self-determination show up in my actions daily? And so when the piece of, this is how these principles are living in me this moment. But I want to just show one, and I'll end with that. My social one, if you look at December of 2023, if you look at plan, the first thing there is attend the Wose Church. Part of my health, I did not create that for this presentation. I joined a Kwanzaa a few years ago with Wose, just for one. I said, for my health in 2023, this is what I must do to become healthier. This is what I must do to manifest my African. And this is what I'm saying about, and the sister said, you call it into existence. Every year we call the next year into existence, what we want.
Give thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
We had a question. What is SBS? What is SBS?
Oh, Safe Black Spaces.
Safe Black Space. Thank you. Thank you. Brother
Safe
Yusef.
Black Spaces, yeah.
Brother Yusef, that was outstanding presentation. And you know what? I just wanted to let you know, you may already know this, and we just have a few minutes. I'm going to share this with you. You may already know this, but you know, Sigmund Freud, you know, because you asked about psychology. So Sigmund Freud wrote this book called Moses and Monotheism. This is Sigmund Freud, and this is his office. And look at what is in his office. And when people were being psychoanalyzed, look what they were sitting under. They were sitting under the picture of Abu Simbel.
Yep.
This is Sigmund Freud's office. You know, so yeah, they've been borrowing from us for quite a while, quite a while. And I want to thank you, brother, for and I'm sure I can say this without any hesitation that people would like part 2, or you know, a continuation of your presentation. I took it upon myself. I didn't ask your permission, but I've already sent your PowerPoint to one of the people that are here today, and I didn't think that you know, that you would have any problem with that. And let's see, somebody put something else in the chat. Oh, okay, so that's been answered. I just want to close with this, sisters and brothers. We're familiar with this. This is our, he gave us our Wose theology today. He gave us our Wose theology today. And this is closing out the book. 2000 Seasons says there's no beauty but in relationship. Nothing cut off from itself is beautiful. Never can things in destructive relationship be beautiful. All beauty is in the creative purpose of our relationships. All ugliness is in the destructive aims of the destroyer's arrangements. The mind that knows this, the destroyers will set traps for it, but the destroyer's traps will never hold that mind. The group that knows this and works knowing this, that group itself is a work of beauty, creation's work. And against such a group, the destroyers will set traps for the body, traps for the heart, traps to destroy the mind. Such a group, none of the destroyer's traps can hold. I want to thank you again, my friend, for giving us such a powerful lesson today. And we're looking forward to when you're going to present again. And this should be out in a couple of days, where you can get a copy of this presentation. Thank you for the questions and comments and remarks.